Good morning, Warriors. Today is Wednesday, January 29th, 2026. Welcome to the Morning Adrenaline. It is time to wake up the warrior. Hey, let me set today's scene for you. Think about a first meeting, a business conversation, a first date, an introduction that actually matters. You sit down with someone you've never met before, and they already have a positive impression of you. They've seen your work. Maybe they know you from a strong social media presence. They've witnessed your impressive marketing, or they've maybe referred to you by someone that has spoken highly of you. So even though it's a first meeting, it's not neutral. It's weighted in your favor. Before you shake their hand, they already have a version of you in their head. They expect competence, they expect character, they expect consistency, they expect reliability. You walk into that meeting with earned momentum. And now the situation isn't about earning trust, it's about confirming it. This is where some people may start to feel pressure, because positive expectations creates a silent question in the room. Can this person actually live up to what I've heard, what I've seen? Now, some people tense up here. They try to perform and they try to impress, while others don't feel pressure at all. And the difference typically comes down to how you feel about yourself. Listen here. Are you a fraud or are you authentic? This is where things break down or they stabilize. When you show up as the authentic version of yourself, there's very little pressure. You're not trying to be impressive. You're simply being consistent with your reputation that you worked hard to build. But when you show up as a villainous, fraudulent character in a story, even if you're a refined one, positive expectations become a weight, because now you're trying to fake an image, fake a reputation, instead of simply delivering who you are and what you do. So that brings us to the idea we're unpacking today. You, as an experience, should exceed your reputation. It shouldn't take effort, and it better not be a performance. You're giving the gift of authenticity, and that gift delivers an amazing experience. See, when someone already expects good things from you, the margin of error is smaller. And these moments decide whether trust compounds, whether respect deepens, whether momentum continues, or whether doubt quietly creeps in and you lose the advantage you walked into the room with. Most reputations don't fall apart dramatically, they just soften. One meeting where something felt off, one interaction that didn't quite match the expectation. And here's meeting expectations is not about doing more. It's about being consistent with who you claim to be. When identity and behavior align, pressure disappears. When they don't, expectations feel heavy. This standard, by the way, applies everywhere with no exceptions. So here's the question of the day. When someone finally meets you in person, already expecting a positive experience, do they walk away even more confident in who you are? Or do they leave slightly confused? Not upset, not confrontational, just unsure. Or worse, sure you're not the right fit because your in-person experience and reputation are not in alignment. Understand, when expectations are high, people don't always voice disappointment. They just recalibrate. So ask yourself, when people meet you, does the experience strengthen the reputation you already have or quietly weaken it? And so listen, this isn't limited to just one area of your life. This dynamic shows up everywhere, not just in business, not just in dating, but in how you work, how you train at the gym, how you relate to others, and how you live out what you say you believe. Same standard, just different arenas of your life. So let's walk through how this actually plays out in every area of your life. And let's start with work and career, because this is where people are judged on one thing: promises kept and results delivered. In business, nobody grades you on effort. They don't grade you on intention. You're graded on your outcomes. And long before a meeting happens, expectations are already set through your marketing, your branding message, your social media, or the way someone else talks about you. All of these things make promises about you, whether you realize it or like it or not. And when those promises are honest, the meeting is easy. There's no pressure and there's absolutely no performance. You just show up and do what you said you would do. But when the promises are inflated, when the image is bigger than the output, pressure shows up immediately. Now you're defending a story. You're explaining instead of delivering. You're hoping expectations soften to a place you can deliver from. And none of this ends well. Real estate makes this painfully clear. Most real estate agents are discovered through some sort of marketing. And the marketing promise sounds incredible. But when it comes time to execute, market the home effectively, communicate clearly, negotiate with power, the results don't match the story. I know, because I spent a lot of my 27 years in real estate cleaning up the mess of bad agents, which is about 99% of them, 99.5 probably percent of them, by the way. When expectations don't live up, the client doesn't usually explode. They don't even make a scene. Most people are inherently nice, even when they've been taken advantage of. But they do feel disappointed and internalize some anger. And disappointment in business looks like silence. And silence shows up as no referrals, no repeat deals, and a possibility of a canceled listing or a canceled client. So understand, what we're talking about here is not about perfection. Everybody has off days. Everybody misses a detail from time to time. But when your words match your work, pressure dissipates. It goes away. It disappears because there's nothing left to defend. If what you promise is real, your reputation holds. If what you promise is just for show, collapse becomes automatic. It doesn't show as emotional or dramatic, just the real consequence of actions not matching up with words. Now, let's talk about how this shows up in relationships, especially in dating. And guys, I'm talking to you here. In dating, respectability is rarely asked for. It's implied. This shows up in how you communicate, how you carry yourself, how you respect boundaries, pace, and context. You don't sit across from a woman and announce, "I'm respectful," or "I'm a good man, I'm a good guy." The reputation in most cases is likely already forming long before the date happens. And the outcomes aren't decided by intention. They're decided by the experience. So here's something that a lot of you men don't want to hear. If you act like an animal on a date or otherwise, you build a reputation that makes it very hard to date respectable women. And sometimes that doesn't look loud or obvious. Sometimes it looks like trying to go 100 miles an hour while she's still cruising through the school zone. You're trying to move into a stage she's not ready for. You're forcing the pace. You're ignoring context. You're not reading the room. Or maybe you are and you just don't care. And that tells her something she needs to know. And women talk, guys. Women post, guys. Now, here's where balance matters, though. You can be kind, courteous, even genuinely nice, and that does not make you weak. This is where most men fall into the trap. Women don't want nice guys. Yes, they do. They just don't want weak guys. You can be nice and still be strong and still lead. Because kindness without direction feels unstable. But aggression without restraint feels unsafe. You're right. Strong women don't want pushovers. They also don't want men who lack self-control. They want men who are respectful, grounded, and capable of leading without needing to dominate. That's what chivalry actually signals. It's not performance. It's not theatrics. Judgment, patience, strength under control. You might still get attention if you ignore this. You might still get dates. But trust doesn't build there, because respectable women don't evaluate hype. They evaluate you based on consistency. And one of the clearest signals of real character is referral. You know a guy is solid when a woman refers him to a friend, especially if they dated once upon a time. That means the experience held up even after emotions cooled. So once again, I'm going to say it because it bears repeating. This isn't about perfection. Sometimes you'll say the wrong thing. You'll misread a moment. You'll have awkward nights. That is all human. What matters is whether the overall experience matches the reputation that you walked in with. Because in relationships, disappointment rarely shows up as confrontation. It shows up as silence, distance, your name not coming up when it should. Attraction opens the door. Character determines how far you're invited in. The gym is one of the few places where reputation is built without saying a word. And before we go any further, let me be really clear about something. Not everyone judges people based on their fitness level, and that's how it should be. What we're about to talk about isn't about looks, it's not about body type, and it's not about everyone needing to be fit. But what we are talking about is representation and how you represent yourself. Because when you portray yourself as disciplined, fit, or health-focused, people form expectations around that. And expectations always meet reality at some point. So you've watched it happen. Someone shows up at the gym with no direction, no urgency, no plan. They sit on popular equipment and scroll their phone and they drift. They're not just unproductive, by the way. You're in the way. And when you get in the way of people who show up with purpose, a reputation forms in the gym. Quietly, sometimes, observationally for sure. But there's another version of this that's even more revealing. You show up to the gym and you expect your trainer to be fit, only to realize that they're what I call fat boy fit. Here's what this means. They clearly work out, they lift, they have some strength, but there's no muscle definition or tone. They don't look sharp, and maybe they even look a little bit sloppy. And that doesn't mean they're a bad person. It doesn't even mean they don't train. It means something doesn't match what's being implied. It means they have discipline in the gym and probably not at the dinner table. Then there's the other moment where you finish a session with a trainer, you walk outside after you shower, and you see your trainer smoking in the parking lot. Have you ever had that happen? Have you ever seen a trainer at the gym smoking in the parking lot out in front of everybody to see? And right there, the reputation recalibrates. Not because anyone expects perfection, but because credibility depends on consistency. Same thing applies outside the gym. Filtered social media photos, carefully angled pictures. Then you show up on a date and the reality is 50 pounds heavier than what you presented in your photos, what you were representing yourself to be. And that's not about attraction, at least not attraction alone. It's about trust. You're living a lie and trying to sell it. Because when people realize they were sold an image instead of a truth, they don't get angry. They just question everything else about you. So this isn't about being shredded, and it's not about denying yourself food. Food is a pleasure. You should enjoy it. You should have cheat meals. You should live. But when every day is a cheat day, leading into your habits, contradicting what you present to the world, people recalibrate. They pull back. Not harshly, usually not verbally, just internally. And this is where it ties directly back to the core idea. Your body doesn't need to impress anyone, but it should never contradict the story you're trying to tell about yourself. Because in fitness, just like business and relationships, it's not perfection people are responding to. It's honesty, it's integrity, it's character, it's authenticity. And the experience of you will always outweigh the image. Finally, let's talk about how this fits into faith and spirituality. And this is the hardest arena to talk about, honestly, because faith is easy to claim and very hard to represent well. So let's start here. Judgment is not the role of a Christian. As disciples of Jesus, judgment belongs to God alone. When Christians position themselves as moral referees, constantly pointing, condemning, posturing, it doesn't look holy. It looks like insecurity. And to be clear, this doesn't mean discernment disappears. It means self-righteousness does. Because the moment you forget that you're a sinner too, should I say that again? Because the moment you forget that you're a sinner too, you stop representing the faith accurately. And so this is where it gets uncomfortable. We're all human. We all fail. We all have bad days. You'll say things you shouldn't. You'll react emotionally. You'll get baited, especially online and in social media. That doesn't disqualify your faith. But here's the tension that most believers don't want to sit with. When you openly proclaim your faith, you don't just represent yourself anymore. Whether you like it or not, you're seen as representing Christianity. And people are watching closely for that disconnect. Again, not perfection, but consistency. And they're always going to be ready to say, that's not very Christian of you. Have you heard that? Have you ever heard that? The people that want to hold it over your head because you're not perfect. Sometimes they're wrong. Sometimes they're projecting, but sometimes they're pointing out a real gap. And so this is where going rogue becomes dangerous. When emotions take the wheel, when pride overrides restraint, when you decide that your outrage is justified enough to abandon wisdom. See, that doesn't just affect you, it affects how non-believers perceive God, how they perceive faith, how they perceive other believers. And that's a weight worth taking seriously. Now, that doesn't mean it has to show up as silence. It doesn't mean that you have to be passive, and it doesn't mean pretending wrong is right. It means remembering who you are and who you're not. You are a witness, not a judge, a steward, not an enforcer. Faith isn't proven by winning arguments. It's revealed by humility, restraint, and ownership when you're wrong. Because when someone meets you expecting spiritual maturity, the goal isn't to impress them. It's to make faith look credible through the actions that would be displayed by a man or a woman of God. And just like every other area we've talked about, the experience matters more than the claim. So we covered a lot today. Let's bring it all back together. We talked about first meetings, business, dating, the gym, faith, and the reality that most of the time people already expect good things from you based on the reputation that they know. And you have to look at that as pressure, not as you have to look at that as not being pressure, but being opportunity. What determines the outcomes isn't effective. It's not effort or an intention. It's whether the experience of you matches what you've implied. When words and results match, trust compounds. When character and conduct align, momentum builds. When representation and reality drift apart, disappointment shows up quietly. No confrontation or drama, just recalibration. Now, watch this. You don't break this cycle by trying harder. You break it by removing internal friction. So that's where Sisu Vita comes in. Sisu Vita works at the identity level. Shifting limiting beliefs, dissolving resistance, and closing the gap between who you say you are and how you actually show up. When identity is clear, performance becomes natural. When belief is aligned, execution stops feeling forced. And for those of you who want structure, not inspiration, that's why we built the 50 plus roadmaps. Anything to help you clear anything from depression to lack of confidence and everything in between. Clear paths, clear standards, clear progression to reclaim your God-given identity. So you're not guessing who you should be. You're becoming the powerful person you were born to be. So here's the final thought that I want you to sit with. When someone meets you, already expecting the best version of you based on your reputation that they know, do they leave clearer, steadier, and more confident in who you are? Or do they walk away quietly, adjusting the story? Because reputation might get you in the room, but identity is what determines whether you stay there. Work your body, feed your mind, build your soul, wake up the warrior. We'll see you guys tomorrow.
Stuck in your mind, fighting shadows of a story you left behind.